am not from Thief River Falls. I am not from McIntosh. I am not from northern Minnesota. But my husband is from McIntosh, Minnesota. And a little bit about us. There were two things that I told my husband when we got married, and one was, I'm not having kids and I'm not moving to McIntosh. Like, it's non-negotiable. So now we live in McIntosh with our kids, and I'll tell you a little bit how that happened. So some events occurred in our family, I think, just like Allie was talking about, when you kind of hit rock bottom and you kind of just give that control up and over to God or a higher power, whatever you want to say, things just happen. And for us, the things that happened were Bryce's brother, that's my husband, Bryce Stordahl, his brother passed away when he was young. He had cancer, and we just could not believe that this happened. He was in his 30s, and it kind of made us reevaluate our life. And it made us question everything that was important to us at the time, which was careers and monies and social, and socializing and all these different things. And so we decided that we wanted to raise a family, and we wanted to come to McIntosh to be around his family. Our goal in doing that was to be supportive, and then also to work on their dairy farm. I was not going to work on their dairy farm. He was going to work on their dairy farm. I'm not a farmer. But then within that year, his father got cancer and he passed away. And so we were in McIntosh with these two little kids and no jobs, and basically kind of like, well, what are we going to do? I mean, you can't stop moving. And Jim, which was my father-in-law, was an extension agent. He was super passionate about the community. He did so many good things, and he was such an inspiration. And so what we decided is, if we were going to live here, we were going to invest in this community. When we moved here, the downtown was basically abandoned on one side. We always had Neil's Quality Meats and More, and we had Jared's Grocery, which are awesome, and Ronnie's Barbershop, but there was nowhere to go. And so I talked to my husband, and we discussed, well, what does he remember from this town? What made it special to live here? And because he always had these great memories, oh, I loved living in McIntosh, and I get here and I'm like, what? Why? But there was this whole past history of McIntosh, and it was a booming little community. There was this awesome bakery, and people would stop by on their way to the lakes, and walking downtown was just sad. And so we decided we were going to take any resources that we had, and we were going to build a community for our kids. And we were just going to do it. And whether that is, silly in retrospect, we had no plan. We were basically like, well, let's just start. So I had always been very interested in design and decor, and I had kind of built a little business. And so there was this like abandoned old Cenex building, not like a cool old building, like a nasty old drop ceiling flooded building. And I started using it for storage for stuff, because I was taking stuff to the flea market in Detroit Lakes at that point just to make some income, because we needed money. And I started putting stuff there, and people started stopping, and they were like, oh my gosh, like, this is so fun. And I'm like, awesome, people are coming to me and I'm not going to them, because that's a really hard thing to do when you have two little kids. And so I started doing shows, and I would go to Minneapolis, and I started kind of just getting a base of customers, and they started coming to McIntosh. I'm like, oh my gosh, and everybody told me that lived here basically in a nice, not always a nice way, but they were like, this isn't going to work here. I mean, they literally just say that to my face. Like, people have tried this. It is not going to work. Don't do this. And not because they were mean people, but because I think they've been like really hurt by all the businesses that had opened and failed. And they got their hopes up, and then they were crushed, and they wanted to see something, but they just couldn't imagine what could possibly change in the town. And it kind of takes an outsider sometimes, who doesn't have all of those ties to the history of the town, maybe to reevaluate and see what the town needed in the future. So to me, it was a brand new experience. After being in that little shop for a while, we decided we were going to invest, and we purchased an old building downtown in McIntosh, which was like the worst thing technically you could do, because I moved off the highway and into town, which is like suicide. You just don't do that. But I really wanted to be in this community, and I felt kind of isolated out there, and I was getting everyone from outside, but I wasn't getting everyone from inside. So we bought the old bakery and we tore it apart, which was extremely heartbreaking for a lot of people around here, because their hopes and dreams were shattered by me. But within 3 months, we had renovated it and we had opened, and everything was going really well. People were coming from all over, and it was just crazy. And then we decided we wanted neighbors, because we were completely empty, all sides of us. It was basically just me and a meat shop. So I started calling people, friends, vendors, people that inspired me and who had connections to this town, who would feel the same way and passionate. I called Catherine Howard from Howard Soap Company, and she was moving from Greenbush back with her 5 kids. And I'm like, you've got to open a store. Like, we've got to get you in a store. And there's this building next to me, and if we remodel it, can we do it? And she's like, sure, which is crazy, because the building's horrible. It was a horrible building. Like, I thought we might fall through the floor. But we didn't. And we said, you know, what can you afford? What can we do to this building as little as possible to make it structurally sound and to make it work for you? So we worked on that, and she moved in, and now it's a work and retail space. She sends her products all over the United States. She has an Etsy store, a very good following. And so she's just another asset to our town. Well, then that kind of just spiraled, because we purchased her building. Then we had a city cafe that no one wanted. It was literally $1 and no one wanted it. And so we're like, okay, fine. So we bought the cafe, and we were like, okay, so now we need people in this cafe. We took this big space that was extremely inefficient. We broke it back into 3 little businesses, and now we have a hair studio, a young gal who is extremely good at what she does. She has a very upscale hair salon. And then we have the Red Poppy. We convinced her to move from Boston. She's like a Boston person, to come here and to kind of just, Catherine's in here, by the way. Yeah, you're totally fine. She's next door. So Red Poppy came over here, and she's like, I want a barn building. And I'm like, okay. So we just tore everything apart, and we created this space for her. And then somebody ended up buying the old hardware store, someone who wasn't us, and they developed that. Now it's the Ginger Junker, and she's originally from St. Paul and moved back with her family with the man she married. And we're looking at doing a cafe. So really within the last 1.5 years, we've done a lot of different stuff. And people always ask how we did it. And I'm like, we did it completely backwards. And what we're trying to do is figure out a way to create something that we can take to other small rural communities, our size or a little bit bigger, and package for them so we can help them kind of rejuvenate their small towns. And that includes business design, because I really feel like we designed this downtown in a very, very thoughtful way. All the businesses complement each other but do not compete against each other. We share employees. We have the same retail system. So when somebody needs an employee over at Howard, they can grab one of mine. Or if I need somebody to run over really quick because I'm really busy, someone can come over to mine or Red Poppy. And we kind of share those people in order to give them enough hours. We are only open on Fridays and Saturdays. So we have all the same hours. And then we market ourselves not only individually, but we market ourselves as the Shops of McIntosh. So we are a single unit that does all our events together. We share all of our marketing costs. We promote each other's businesses. all of our events are shared to try and really create this environment where people want to come and they want to stay and they want to hang out. We have similar values, and we've really worked hard to create that experience when you come here. So the next thing on our docket is a cafe, because we have nowhere to eat. And we all know that that's very important. And a cafe is kind of like the lifeblood in a small community. So it's where everybody gathers and it keeps people engaged. And so we're working with someone right now, and we are going to be opening a cafe hopefully in February or March. That will be based on a plan that we can hopefully take other places. So that's kind of our story. I tried to make it really small, but I own Minnesota Rust. So I'm like not even an entrepreneur, really. I'm like a designer or a person who likes old stuff and kind of fell into this. So